Hey there, good morning everybody. I'm Steve Farrell with Humanities Team. I'm coming to you live from our studio here in Boulder, Colorado. You can see I've got my guest on the screen here, Neale Donald Walsch. I'll introduce him here in a moment. Neale, thank you for joining me this morning.
It's lovely to be here, Steve. Thanks for the invitation and thanks for the opportunity.
Oh gosh, yeah. Well, we looking forward to today's program. Neale was with us last week. Neale's going to be with us quite a lot here in coming weeks. This week and in coming weeks, we've got this huge initiative, Changing Humanity's Future, that we're launching together. Humanities Team, Neale, the Conversations with God Foundation, and of course, an initiative with that kind of nameplate has got a lot of important work to do. So lots of conversations we're going to be bringing you in, viewers here. So this is a live program. And today our theme is your own conversations with God. So that's where we're going to start here, your own conversations with God. I want to shout out to everybody. So people on Neale's Facebook page, our Humanities Team Facebook page, Humanities Stream members, the Sign Network, and John Raymer. Big shout out to all of you. Thank you all for joining us. It's a live program, so this means that we can take your questions and comments. The sooner you put your questions and comments in the window where you're out on social media, the better chance that I can bring these to Neale here during the hour. So, hey, don't be shy. Throw questions at us. There's a lot of really good stuff we're going to talk about. And would like to this was never meant to be a presentation, these Humanities Team Live programs. These are meant to be conversations, discussions, collaborations, where we're talking about how we're going to do important work together. Okay, so our theme again, your own conversations with God, an important theme. Let me introduce Neale here. Neale Donald Walsch is the celebrated author of the Conversations with God series and a modern-day spiritual messenger. Neale is a longtime and dear friend of mine and Humanities Team. He is a co-founder of Humanities Team. I'm a co-founder with him. June 2003, we launched Humanities Team together in Wilsonville, Oregon. His books and teachings have served to help millions of people develop a modern sense of God and to build the connection between themselves and the divine. Wow, a very important function. And truly, Neale's books have changed millions of lives. So, Neale, thanks again for being here and looking forward to just jumping right in with you today.
Well, thank you, Steve, and thank you for that very sweet and kind introduction. I wish I could deserve all those nice words, but here I am, for better or for worse.
Yeah, well, boy, we're sure glad you're here on the planet. You're doing so many good things. We really appreciate your many, many contributions to an awakened humanity. Neale, let's just launch right in. I know you've been asked. Your book one of Conversations with God. Gosh, that was published all the way back in 1995. I remember in 1995 reading that book myself, and of course that changed my whole life. And of course I'm sure you've been asked so many times about this whole aspect of your own conversations with God, because you share, my God, this is the most normal thing in the world where there's no separation. Of course there's conversations with God all day long, but so can you talk a little bit about this?
Yes, I think that that which we call God, the aspect of life that some people refer to as God, the higher power, Brahman, Yahweh, whatever word it feels good to use, I think that that part of the universe is embedded in all of us. So, in fact, honestly, to be very direct, Steve, I don't think that I know it. It's something that I've simply come to know as a reality. As I observe my life and the life of others. So when we talk about having conversations with God, I think we're really referring to an experience in which that part of us, where wisdom and clarity and understanding, compassion and pure love dwells, and it's brought forward. It's brought forward by the divine. I see us all as waves on the ocean of divinity. So we're not, obviously, none of us are God in total, but that each of us are individuations of God. And yes, I've had the experience. What's interesting, Steve, that I didn't have the experience that I'm discussing consciously. It was going on in my life unconsciously, that is, without my being aware of it or without my calling it what it is. But I began to having those conversations consciously around 30 years ago or so in 1995. And I became aware of exactly what was happening. What am I interacting with? Where is this wisdom coming from? And, I have to say that I think that each of us are having conversations with God all the time. We're simply calling them something else. We're calling them, women's intuition, or a moment of clarity, or an epiphany, or a sudden insight, whatever words help us to describe it, because we're not comfortable calling it a conversation with God. And what's sad about that, Steve? The reason that most of us, I'm not going to speak for all of us, but the reason that most of us are not comfortable calling it a conversation with God is that the chief promulgator of God's information in the world, the world's religions, and there are over 4,000 of them, by the way, the world's religions teach us that it's not really a good idea to say that we're having conversations with God. We can say that we pray to God, but it's really frowned on for us to say that not only do we pray to God, that is, not only do we send messages to God, but that God sends messages to us. That's a very discouraged, I want to say, thing for us to announce. So we call it something else. But all of us are receiving those insights, those moments of inspiration, those moments of great awareness, higher consciousness, and that impulse, that inner urge to do or be or to say something in particular at a particular time in our daily life. So I encourage people to, whatever you call it, you don't want to call it a conversation with God, then don't, or go ahead and call it that, whatever works for you. But pay attention. Whatever you call it, pay attention to that inner impulse, that inner urge that speaks to you with great clarity, with total lack of fear, with a sense of total freedom, and with a deep understanding of who you are and of who everyone else is as an individuation of divinity. And if we pay attention to that, my experience, at least, Steve, has been that we will be filled with an energetic that I call pure love. And when that energetic fills us, it will overflow from us and be projected by us into the exterior world. And that will not only change our life, but it is how the world itself can and will be changed.
Yeah, boy, such an important thing to talk about, because what we're talking about here, of course, is the creator of the whole universe is living within us. That God, the divine, whatever word we want to use, and where we build that relationship with the divine, who's a part of us. There's no separation, and just feel this love for God, which is then a love for universe, because, of course, Conversations with God says these words are interchangeable, which means a love for other people, which means a love for the earth, and so on. As you mentioned, then there's this whole boomerang effect of pure love that's felt, that's growing, that's expressed. I experience all of those things. And then when we add in these things where we say, how can I be in service? How can I be the grandest version of the greatest vision that I've ever had? Where we want to come into service and ask these questions. Wow, I mean, does God bring it on or what? Oh, you're muted, Neale. I'm not sure how that happened. It just happened. You were.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
There we go.
My mistake. But my answer to your question is yes. It happens in larger measures. If you ask that question, how can I be of service? How can I be of service to the world at large, in my life, and for that matter, in this very moment, What could I be, do, or say in this very moment that could be of service to the moment itself and to life itself? You ask that question, you'll be given an answer. And you'll be given an answer in very many ways. It could be in the form of a feeling, a sudden understanding, as I said a minute ago, a brilliant insight, a deep awareness, but a sense of what the moment is inviting to move from us, through us, as us, into the world at large. And I can tell you that God will never let you down. She'll give you the answer immediately and very clearly and very quickly. And you'll have an awareness of what it is that's being invited from you into this time and place. So yes, give yourself permission to ask that question. What is it that life is inviting from me now? If my purpose here was to demonstrate the grandest thought I ever held about who I am. Now, you know what? It's hard for me to say that. When I say those words, I even feel myself thinking, gosh, that sounds a bit grandiose, a bit self-congratulatory. It's hard to. Can we announce to ourselves privately? This isn't something that would walk down the street and tell other people necessarily, but can we announce to ourselves privately who we are, that we really are individuations of divinity, and can we invite ourselves to the question, what does this next moment in life invite from me? In what way can I experience and express who I really am? And if we all did that, nothing more than that, beginning tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, the world would change by 5 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. I mean, the whole thing would be different. We simply wouldn't do or be or say some of the things that all of us do or be or say, but we simply forget who we really are. That's my idea about it. Thank you for asking me.
Yeah. Thank you, Neale. I'm just smiling. The quote that we put up on TikTok this morning and Instagram is a quote from Conversations with God, and it says that the world would, just what you said, the world would change overnight if this revolutionary understanding were embraced by people that God is not separate from them or anything. The world would change overnight.
Yes.
So, which is a pretty big statement.
I think the biggest problem in the world today, frankly, Steve, is the fact that most of our world leaders do not know what the biggest problem in the world today is. That is, they see the outfall. The outfall is alienation. And we see alienation being demonstrated, frankly, at a higher level right now than I've seen in my entire life. I've never seen such a level of alienation. People of different races, people of different religions, people of different political points of view, people of different economic status, people of different sexual orientations. Anybody who's different from anybody else in any way is open to this experience of alienation from those others who are not part of our group, if you please. And I've never really quite experienced that so much on the planet at this level now, but because the leaders of our world are not clear what's causing the alienation. They're not clear what the problem is. So the biggest problem in the world today is that people don't know what the biggest problem in the world today is. We can put it in one word, and you just did a moment ago, Steve. Separation. We think that we are separate from each other. We think we're separate from life itself, and we think that we're separate from that aspect of life that some of us call God. Let me just share one last thing. I think all of us, I hope at least, my hope is that all of us have had at least one moment in our life. Have you ever gone outside, and this is going to sound strange, but I'm going to say it anyway. Have you ever gone outside and fallen in love with a tree or with a plant? Have you ever held a flower in your hand and just loved it so much, appreciated its beauty and the wonder of what it is so much that you actually, in a sense, fall in love with it? Have you ever hugged a tree? I do. I go out in the backyard and I hug the tree twice a month. I give it a big hug and I say, "Oh, thank you for being here for all these years and just being this magnificent, magnificent expression of life in the form that has been chosen for you." And what if we did that with each other? What if you just simply, I'm going to dare you to do one thing. Those of you who are partnered, if you have a life partner in your life right now, I'm going to dare you to do something that most people don't do. I'm going to dare you to look your partner in the eye without taking your eyes off their eyes for 60 seconds once a week. Maybe even once a day, but I dare you to do it even once a week. Do you know how hard it is to look at somebody's eyes without taking your eyes off of their eyes for 60 seconds? And you know why we don't do that? Because we know that if we look at somebody's eyes for 60 seconds, we're going to fall in love at a level we've never been in love with before. We will see into their soul, and we will see that there is no difference at our basis between us, that all differences between us are simply cosmetic. But at the level of being, we are one. And you know what's funny about that? We're all adults here, so please forgive me if I use a romantic reference. But I can remember when I was about 24 or 25 years old, a very young man, I was involved in a romantic episode, a sexual experience with a young lady. And I remember her saying to me in the middle of that experience, "Will you look at me? Just look at me. Your eyes are closed. Could you just look into my eyes while we're having this encounter so that you can be with me?" And of course, it's very dangerous to look at somebody in the eye at such a moment or at any moment. We find it very difficult to do. We can't even look at each other on an elevator. I mean, we're actually taught on an elevator to look at your shoes, look at the sign on the wall, look at the warning, whatever. Do not look at each other. We're not supposed to look at each other. Don't stare. I can recall my parents telling me when I was 7 years old, "Son, don't stare." So I learned not to look at people, to say, you know what? I'm going to end my little tirade with this. Dare you to look at yourself. Wake up tomorrow morning and look at your own eyes in the mirror for 60 seconds. Watch what happens.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful, Neale. So I want to just say thank you. So Patricia, Richie, Claire, people are bringing questions in. So we're going to get to your questions. Thank you. We're just going to cover a little more ground here, and then we're going to bring in questions from you all. Some of you are on Neale's Facebook page, so look forward to responding to things that you're bringing in. I want to come back just for a second to this whole your own conversations with God thing. My wife is I would call on the shyer side. She's more one that kind of lives it as opposed to talking about it. And this morning I was just asking her, I said, Stephanie, how does your own conversation with God, what does that look like? How would you describe it? And she said, well, I would describe it as either a small voice that's not audible, but that I hear, or as just this knowing, this gentle knowing that just kind of steers my ship. That where I know that, like back when we started dating, I should date you and not so and so, or I should work here and not there, or I should rent this apartment. And the only reason I'm coming back to this, your own conversations with God, is in this whole Changing Humanity's Future initiative. It's incredibly important that we're going to be, when we get into these concrete steps that we're taking, this aspect of our own going within, our own conversations with God, our own inner guidance. It is so hugely important. And I'm hoping, viewers, that we can just stimulate some conversation here, some thoughts, because this really is hugely important when we talk about creating this world that we want. The way Conversations with God describes it, it says, follow the impulse of your soul in every moment. That is that God place. That's that hearing that voice. That's following that guidance. That's creating a connection and alignment. So that's why I wanted to come back to this. It's really important. I want to also say these things Neale and I are talking about, again, this could be, if you were talking to me, maybe 30 years ago, and you were asking me about this conversation Neale and I are having, I probably would have said it, well, it's interesting. I'm not sure the level of importance I would have put on it. Today, the importance is up there at 10. Neale was talking earlier about the dysfunction in the world, the challenge, the alienation in the world. And so this whole changing humanity's future thing is all about what is this light at the end of the tunnel? Where are we going where we now feel this oneness with God, where we live consciously and where we do this together?
And not only that, Steve, but for the rest of you, not only the question he just asked, but another question. What, if anything, can I do to bring others there? Is there any way that I can participate in the larger process, in fact, of changing humanity's future? I know it sounds like a big order. Wait a minute, changing humanity's future. But you know what? It's done one person at a time. Anthropologists tell us that the average person will encounter 125,000 people in their lifetime. That's 250,000 people between Steve and me. If we don't even do things like this, forget about being on international Zoom calls like this one. If we just move through life in the way we used to normally years ago before Zoom was invented, we're going to touch 250,000 people between us. So the average person is going to touch you, those of you watching right now. You're going to touch 125,000 people in your lifetime. And how you touch them is what will change humanity's future. I know it sounds like a big order, but it's not. It's just about falling into the self that you truly are and choosing to make your life a conversation with God.
Yeah, boy, now this is a huge topic. We're going to turn to this here in just a little bit of who are we in response to the world around us, and then bringing our friends, coworkers, and family along. Hugely important topic we're going to get to. Let's we have a clip that we're going to bring in. So Humanity Stream, all of these programs go to the Humanity Stream. It's this revolutionary conscious streaming platform that extends all over the world, soon also in Spanish, French, and German. Neale has over 75 programs right now on the Humanity Stream channel. Let's go to a little clip here where Neale talks about how this whole process of self-selecting to participate in this whole changing humanity's future thing works. We're going to go look at it right now.
I want to add that here's where, how and where you come in. Because what I want all of us to understand is that no one's going to come along, with the sword Excalibur and put it on each of our shoulders and knight us in the field. That is, we're not going to be given a specific knighthood or an assignment, directly. No one's going to say, you should do this, you should do that, you should do this. And see, so that's not how it works. Humanity's team, the Conversations with God Foundation, Steve and Neale, none of us are going to say to you, oh, this is what, you need to do. This is your destiny. So here's what I've learned in the Conversations with God experience, my friends. It's a process by which we self-select. We select ourselves. We say to ourselves, I'm in. And I'm not waiting for someone else to tell me what to do. I have an intuitive sense of what I can do, what I'm able to do, what is mine to do, my gifts, my talents, my energy, my opportunity. And I'm going to lend all of that, my resources, whatever they might be, all the resources at my disposal. I'm going to put that at the disposal of this outreach, of this campaign to change humanity's future. But it's a process of self-selecting. So that's what I want to say to you here today. As you're listening to this program, as you're watching Steve and I share what we've come here to share today, ask yourself, am I a part of this? Does this speak to me?
Boy, very important. This is exactly what we're wanting to get to here. These live programs here were not meant to just be presentations or entertainment or anything. This is a dialogue, a an action, an initiative where we're going to go all the way to changing humanity's future. And we're extending the invitation in everything that we're doing in these programs. It's really about you, the viewer. What is your own conversations with God? Are you self-selecting? Are you feeling called? What is your expression? What's your station in life? How do you plan to participate? These are the kinds of things that we're wanting to get to here. That was a beautiful description there, Neale, that we were just watching.
Yes. Thank you very much. And I have to tell people, I actually do own more than one shirt. I just happen to have the same shirt on today that I had on when the other thing was done. I was watching and thinking, people are going to think you only own one shirt.
I didn't even, you know what? I didn't even notice that. I noticed I had a different shirt.
I did.
But
I said, "Oh, great! You wearing the same shirt you wore the other day." So, but I have to tell you that I have actually two shirts. My wife won't let me have more than two shirts, but I trade them off, one day and one the other day, and I'm only allowed to have two shirts in my closet. Or maybe
now I'm
three.
You and I are old Catholics, so I've got to come forward with my own confession here. In the winter, you notice I always either have a blue or a gray mock turtleneck on. Now I've got like 15 of each of them, and I just today's blue, tomorrow's gray. Today is so all winter long.
Men, see, only men. All the ladies out there now are saying under their breath, "Men," because only men don't. We don't really care. If you're a lady, you actually care, and you put a lot of care into how you are presented in the world. But a guy doesn't care. Gray sweatshirt, blue sweatshirt, or whatever. Leave me alone.
Yeah, winter is fantastic. From the fall until about April. I'm in this blue gray. It's wonderful. See, it's so easy.
Ruth understands perfectly what I'm saying there. She's chuckling with me because she understands exactly what I'm saying.
All right. So let me just share here. We're gonna go into this whole thing that Neale was talking about earlier, but I want to just on Humanity Stream Plus. If you're not familiar with it, check it out. This in this initiative that we're launching called Changing Humanity's Future. Education is always central to social change, so it's a big part of what we're doing, where we're aspiring to reach out to every home in every region of the world in every major language with all of these incredible online transformational education programs. Again, Neale has 75 programs himself on the Humanity Stream Plus channel. If you go up to the search bar and just type in Desmond Tutu or Deepak Chopra or Ken Wilber or anything, you'll be shocked at how many programs come up. And it's a true streaming platform, which means it's just you click once and you're in, and then you can go through all of Neale's 27 modules in Final Frontier, or go through some number, and then you can come over and watch another program, his new program, Soul's Purpose, with Michael Bernard Beckwith or something. So check that out. Now, I want to come back to what you were opening up earlier here, Neale, which is really, the way I'll frame this is, who do we want to be in response to all of the dysfunction in the world? When we were in the green room before we came on this program, I was sharing, I've got a neighbor named Mike. I always walk my dog Sadie in the morning, and he has his dog, Mandy, that he's out walking. I often run into him, and he shares quite frequently of, oh my God, Steve, can you believe, it now, with Ukraine and COVID, and then there's some guy with a hacksaw near my kids' schools, and this and this and this. And he was sharing this whole litany of things this morning, and I shared, he knows I lead humanities team, and I shared, Mike, the way we're looking at this is, first of all, we're human and feeling all of the challenge that you feel. But then the question becomes, who do we want to be in response to that? That if we're going to, if there's anything healthy, anything healing that we're going to be bringing to the world at this time, it's that question, and we all have a different answer, but who do we want to be in response to these things? Because if we don't rise to that level, if we can't end there, then how do we ever get out of this mess, right? So And we could talk about being a healer. We could talk about alchemy. Neale, in your case, we could talk about just being a truth teller, with the great insight. So we all have a different station in life here, don't we? But this is the important thing, that we don't get stuck. Of course we're human. Of course we're going to feel these challenges as these things come out, Roe versus Wade, these various things that are happening in the world now. But we can't stop there and get stuck there, right?
I think the question drives to a larger issue. Why are we here on the planet? What is our purpose? If we think we're simply life forms, chemical creatures, basically a body with a mind, if that's what we think of ourselves as, we're going to have a different response to the question, why am I here? But if you think of yourself as a spiritual entity that has a body and has a mind, but if you're clear, wait a minute, this is not who I am. These are tools that I have. Who I am is a soul. I am a spiritual entity. If that's how you hold your life encounter, seeing yourself as a spiritual entity, brother, that changes the context of your whole presence on earth. Why am I here if I'm a spiritual entity? What is my purpose? What is my function? And it's not, by the way, to change the world. I don't want you to think that I'm suggesting for a minute, your function is to change the world. No. At least not in my understanding. My understanding is that we have come here, each of us individually, in order to announce and declare, express and fulfill, become and experience through the demonstration thereof who we really are. That we're using physical life to express and to experience, not just to know it conceptually, but to experience it, our true identity. It's by that process that we evolve as individual souls in the universe. So really, the reason to do or to be anything at all is for you to have the opportunity to know and to demonstrate yourself as who you really are. That's why it's a personal decision. So we're not here today suggesting that, your function, your opportunity is to change the world. That is an invitation, because you will change the world. You'll change the world around you. You'll change the world of all those whose lives you touch when and if you decide to demonstrate your true identity. So allow yourself to focus on your own raison d'etre, as the French would say, your own reason for being. Your reason for being, I don't want you to feel, when you finish watching this program, somehow I got to figure out something I can do to help change the future. Yes, you can, but it's about changing yourself, changing into yourself. It's like, like Superman, when he takes off his outer clothes and he changes into his uniform, so to speak. It's about changing into yourself. And when you change into yourself, you become a person who automatically changes the future of the world, because we've never seen the likes of anything that's close to as magnificent as you are when you're being your true self. And let me close with this. I know each of you have had an experience of that. All of you have had at least a moment or two in your life when you show up that way, when you did that, when you showed up that way in the life of another. Maybe it was a moment when you gave the right and perfect advice. Maybe it was a moment when you just offered the right and perfect opportunity to share, whatever you had to share, financial resources or time or talent, whatever you had to share. All of you have had moments in your life when you demonstrated who you really are in that way. I know you all have. So the question is not, how can I get there? You've already been there. The question is not, how can I get there? The question is, how can I stay there? And when you decide to stay there, that's when you join in changing humanity's future.
Okay. Thank you,
I could be
Neale.
wrong about all of that. That's just what I was told in conversations with God. I could be wrong about all of that, but I don't think so.
So let's look at what, we've come back a couple of times here, Neale and I, to this issue of, Neale and I, of course, are having this conversation. Viewers are here bringing in questions. This has some level of importance, but how important is what we're talking about? Let me bring in a quote from the very last Conversations with God book. So that was Conversations with God, book 4, Awaken the Species. Here's what God says in the book. This is the most important matter facing the human race. If you truly want to take advantage of this being the perfect time for advancement, that's capitalized, perfect time for advancement within your species, allowing it to continue to exist in a wonderful and pleasant version of physicality. So this is the most important matter facing us at this time. We've come back to this a number of times. I was sharing, 30 years ago, I would have given this conversation maybe a 5 on a 1 to 10 level of importance. Now, Neale was with us last week. He's here this week. I'm going to tell you about a program that's Wednesday next week. We're coming back again and again because we're up at a 10. The level of importance here and what we're talking about now is at a level of a 10. So let me share this. Part of what we're discussing is this initiative that we're just in the process of formally launching. It's called Changing Humanity's Future. We're talking just a little bit about it here now and last week. Next Wednesday, so a week from today, July 6th, beginning at 10 a.m. Pacific, that's 1 p.m. Eastern, Neale and I and Timothy Noah are going to be on live, and we're going to take you into details of this initiative. This is the formal launch of the Changing Humanity's Future initiative. You can see we've got a little web address on the screen. We'll also share on social media a link. And if you go and hit that link, of course it's a free program, it's a live program. Next Wednesday, July 6th, a week from today, we invite you to join us and come in and hear in some depth and detail what this initiative is, why it's important, and how you can participate. So I'll, one more time before the program is over here today, I'll come back to share the link. But go ahead and save that link and join us next Wednesday. Very important initiative that we're going to be disclosing. Okay, let me turn to some of the questions here. I want to, again, thank you viewers for your interaction with us. First, I'll bring in Patricia Wagner's here in the Humanity Stream Plus room with us. And she says, Steve and Neale, please explain what the program Changing Humanity's Future will consist of, the details of it, the vision and purpose. Apologies if you are repeating this information, but I've been on vacation and missed the previous broadcast. Well, that's it. So Patricia, we can give you a little summary here, but please join us next Wednesday, right? This is, if you want the details here, purpose, all of this, the big vision, boy, be with us next Wednesday. A whole hour is devoted to this, where we're going to really go down into it. And it's our very first time that we've unveiled it like this. So be sure to join us. But Neale, briefly, what words do you want to put around this initiative?
It's an outreach to people all over the world. The initiative is probably the biggest individual expression of the Conversations with God material that I've been involved in my life. It's an opportunity to take the message that I was given in the Conversations with God, that we were all given in the CWG dialogue, and put it on the ground and make it real across the board in every nation on earth. So what we're talking about is not reading anymore and letting it go at that, but reading more and letting it start there, and see how we can take these words that we've been given in those 9 dialogue books and put them on the ground. And so without getting into specifics right now, but the plan is to engage everyone we can possibly engage, we're talking thousands of people, perhaps even millions of people, and ultimately to take a message to billions of people to say there is a tomorrow. difficult. So it's an invitation. The campaign is an invitation. If you found meaning and truth in the Conversations with God dialogues, let's turn it into on-the-ground reality.
Amen. Let me read a few more quotes here from, as you know, this is a 9-book series, Conversations with God. I'll read you just a couple more quotes. So here's another one. This is from, these other two are from Tomorrow's God, which is the book where Humanity's Team is also in the conversation. Here's the quote. I can assure you, all of you will awaken. That's in caps. All of you will awaken, period. This is part of the process of evolution, the process of rejoining the inseparable, knowing again that separation never occurred. Each of you will awaken because no part of God can be deserted by God. Okay, and then here's another quote from Tomorrow's God. It says, the day of atonement, that is @1-ment, is near at hand. So now, let me just say this. With all of the things going on in the world, if God could weigh in and come in and just provide a little bit of clarity in the midst of all this stuff going on in the world, and then lay out some simple steps where he says, well, you know, here are some things you could do that will steer you in the direction of creating a fulfilling life for yourself where you come to know what the true definition of prosperity is. And for the collective, where you could create a sustainable and flourishing planet. So if God could surface and provide a little clarity and then a little direction, some advice, instructions, invitations to, you could do these things and you'll get there. Now, wouldn't that be something to ring the bell? I mean, would this not be something we'd say, hooray, oh my God, you know, because certainly everybody's praying all over the planet right now, right? Well, God has done this. This is exactly what's happened. This big, now Neale isn't going to go there to say this, but I will, that there would be a public conversation in the form of 9 books where God would weigh in and say, there's a lot of prayers down there on the earth, asking for a little assistance. And so here you go. Here's a little clarity as to how life works. Here's a few invitations for how you might live your life if you want to ascend into the world that you envision and dream about. Now, why would God not do something like this? And then especially when you read the wisdom and you say, oh my, you know, everything is jaw-dropping all the way through. So all we're doing here, to come back to what Neale was sharing in this Changing Humanity's Future, is we're just grabbing the insights, the quotes, the invitations, and we're lining them up, and we're going to together go through that clarity, go through these invitations, go discuss these steps that we can take, and we'll bring in as well. I know Neale has great respect for many of these other incredible thought leaders who are also on the Humanities Stream platform. Michael Bernard Beckwith, who has many programs on the Humanities Stream platform. He just did a brand new master program on soul's purpose with Neale. And other incredible thought leaders who are also part of this campaign. So, and now, beginning next Wednesday, even today for that matter, we're extending the invitation to you, because when we talk about changing humanity's future, I can't do that. Neale can't do that. The only way we can do that is where you, the viewer, says, you're right, this is an important time. God's provided some insight, some clarity, some invitations. Let's do this together. That's what we're doing. So, and there are many more details that we'll share again next Wednesday, July 6th. So hope you will join us next week. Let me go back and get some more questions here. So here's another question. Richie, who's on Neale's Facebook page, says, what does Conversations with God mean when it says, and then he capitalizes, life proceeds out of your intentions for it?
She means exactly what she said. life proceeds out of your intentions for it. But what's interesting, because your intentions are simply formulated energetic expressions. Did you catch that, Richie? Your intentions are formulated energetic expressions. That is, you take the energy of the universe and formulate it into a specific pattern. We call that pattern words or thoughts or ideas or intentions. And what's sad about the fact that your future is created by the intentions you have for it is that most people don't step into their future or really any given moment with a particular intention in mind. And so I have to share with you that my observation has been that the largest number of people on the earth, perhaps not you and me, but the largest number of people on the earth live their life without knowing exactly what they're doing. They're just kind of like encountering life and trying to make the best of it, given what they've been told and how they've been trained and what they've been taught. But the number of people is very, very small who actually enter into any given moment with a specific intention in mind and who decide ahead of time what that intention will be. Most of us know what our next moment is going to be. We know I've got to go downtown to pick up the mail, or I've got to go shopping, I've got to go to the store, or I have to have a long talk with my spouse this evening about our budget and our family budget, or whatever it might be. Just watching television, whatever it might be. Most of us know what we're going to do in the next half hour or so, but most of us don't know why. We don't know why we're going to do it. That is, we haven't given it a reason why. And this is where the power of personal creation comes in. Not just knowing what you're going to do a half hour from now, but giving it a specific reason. Why have I chosen to do that? Why have I decided that this is what I'm going to do for the next hour of my life? Oh, I see. And then you imbue it with a particular, powerful, and specific intention and watch the outcomes change.
Yes, so incredibly important. And of course, throughout Conversations with God, certainly in the last book, it goes on at some length about, and it compares like if we were driving without intention and if we were driving with intention, where it says you can get in your car and just go here and there and circles and squares, or you can go somewhere. I'm getting in my car to go here, and drawing the comparison. Here we're changing humanity's future, the work that we're talking about, with intention of we're changing humanity's future. How? If you distill what we're talking about, by changing ourselves, by coming into awakening to who we really are, and living from our station in life, our own expression of divinity. That's actually, isn't it ironic when we talk about changing the whole of humanity, the whole collective of the planet? It's actually always coming back to ourselves, to you, the viewer. How are we going to awaken to who we are and then express that, these invitations in life? Okay, so there's, again, boy, thank you, viewers. We've got just tons of questions coming in. This one question from Neale, I don't see who that one's from. I'll read let me just read a quick comment first, and then I'll get to the question. So Andreas is coming in from Indonesia, and she says, so many people like you, Neale. Please come to Bali. Let's meditate. So very sweet invitation here. I don't know when Neale will next get over to Indonesia and Bali, but you're being invited, Neale. So
thank you, Andrea.
Yeah, boy. This is one of the things beautiful Andrea brings us in, is this is a global conversation. Isn't it neat? People all over the planet are tuned in. This is not just in this country or North America or even the Americas, North, Central, South America. This is a global conversation that we're having. So very nice. Okay, so here's a question for Neale. I don't have the person's name on this one, but it says, it's a question for Neale. It says, what are your thoughts on seeing synchronicities as signs of God? Are there guidelines that we can rely on to interpret God's messages?
Yes, the question is answered in book 1. because information is coming to us from a lot of sources. We want to make sure that we don't make the mistake of calling every synchronicity, of calling every coincidence a sign from God, because that would be, I think, a misunderstanding of how the whole process works. But in my experience, all I can talk about is my experience. In my experience, I can tell when the information that I'm receiving is coming from that source of divine wisdom and clarity that resides within all of us, when it is carrying the following signature: it's free, it's fearless, and it's joyful. Joy, fearlessness, and freedom are the three characteristics of my conversations with God and of every piece of information that I receive. If the information is filled with fear or constriction or, needing to protect myself, it's probably not a communication that I received from the place of highest wisdom within me. So that's how I tell whether the signs, whether the synchronicities of life are actually signs from God. If the synchronicity shows me fear, gone, fearlessness. If it shows me joy, present, joyfulness, and it shows me truth and freedom, then I go, there's a sign that I want to pay attention to. And I do. I pay attention to those signs. But that's the measuring stick that I use to determine whether the sign is coming from the divine or from some other humanly created source.
Yeah, beautiful. I want to bring in too, because we're talking quite a lot about just our own individual awakening and expression of divinity and so on. The peace. When I sometimes use this term, align with the divine, and align with the divine. All I'm saying is, like, these messages that come through in conversations with God that describe what godliness is, what divinity is, what our invitation is. Where we're feeling this connection with people and the earth and all of life on earth, and where we're following the impulse of our soul. Even right now, if you want to just tune in to kind of how it feels for you, the sense of peace, of joy, which is quite different from, I came from Silicon Valley, and if I were to really take a measure of how I was feeling throughout my day in Silicon Valley, I wouldn't be using those terms, peace and joy, or align with the divine. I'd be using different terms, mental, emotional. I've got these targets. Where am I on my targets? So that's kind of the world that we come from as we come into this world that we're talking about, where, my way of thinking of it is this is ultimate reality, what we're talking about. I mean, we can believe we're separate, for example, as many people do. We've been talking about that. But that doesn't mean that it's true. So we're living in this, we've created an ultimate reality that isn't even true. So all we're talking about is, and science, of course, is affirming, and Nassim Haramein and other scientists are affirming, no, it's true. We're sovereign to one body. Now, scientists like to call it universe. We're calling it God or the divine, though Conversations with God says it doesn't matter. These words are all interchangeable. Call it whatever you want, but you're sovereign to one body. So just kind of bringing it back to the treasure or prosperity for us, where we're living this way. There's this is the furthest thing from sacrifice. A lot of times people think of the spiritual path. Oh, that means you're ready to sacrifice and give things up. Well, I don't. You're actually ready to receive the treasure of what life is. It's actually just the opposite. Okay, let me come back to, here's a question from Claire Neale. She says, I suffered with mental health 24 hours a day for 4 years solid. Where was God then? How could they let me suffer like that? It was mental anguish.
I don't think that God lets us suffer. I don't think that God is engaged in the moment-to-moment emotional experience of our lives and of the lives of all the 8 billion people on the earth, to say nothing of the 600 trillion beings in the universe. God's not up there thinking about the 600 trillion beings in the cosmos and saying, oh, being number 2,534,621 at 4 o'clock on Saturday afternoon, you're going to feel this or you shouldn't feel that. So it would be a mistake, in my view, for us to think of God as, so, well, where was God when I was feeling so horrible? God is always there. And I want to suggest to you that I notice that you're not saying that you're suffering mental illness now. You said that you suffered from, these emotional challenges for 4 years, but something or another pulled you out of it and brought you to a place where you could actually ask the question, where was God during that time? God was exactly there. And it's a question of where was I during that time? What was I doing, saying, being, or having, or not doing, saying, being, or having, that I suddenly started doing, saying, or being, or having right now that's placed me into a place right now where I'm free of all of that mental anguish that I was describing that I went through for 4 years. So where was God during those 4 years? Patiently and lovingly waiting for us to make the decision that you made apparently at some point, because here you are asking the question.
Yeah, beautiful. Boy, and he is here, right now, always. So beautiful, Neale. Yeah, and I know you get asked this question a lot. So I want to just bring back this Changing Humanity's Future Initiative. So it's Wednesday next week, that's July 6th at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Neale and I and Timothy Noah are going to be with you live, taking you down into what this whole initiative is about. And one of the things Neale and I've shared that I want to emphasize here now is the quotes that we're going to share, the direction that we're going to share, the vision that we're going to share, the plan that we're going to share. We took these directly from the Conversations with God material. So the way I like to think about it is, again, in today's world with all of this stuff going on, if God could come into your living room and say, hey, here's a vision, here's how life could be, here's steps that you could take, would we be interested? Would we listen? Would we take notes? Would we want to do something with that? Well, our answer is yes. And that's what this Changing Humanity's Future initiative is. We've distilled all of this down, and we're going to follow, we're going to share that vision, our plan for how we can launch out into the world in a much bigger way than we have today, and ultimately reach into every home in every part of the planet, in every major language. We use the term to live consciously within this initiative, Changing Humanity's Future. And there's no magic to the terminology living consciously. We could call this something else, awakening to oneness, or living in unity consciousness, or something. We're using the term live consciously because it speaks to the most people, where we want to speak to people from where they are, where people could get that we're putting this vision, these plans, these steps that are taken directly from the Conversations with God material down on the ground, where we're stepping together, journeying together in this direction of a whole planet that's living consciously in 18 short years from now. So that's what we're doing. And invite you again to join us Wednesday, July 6th. Next week, we'll put a link in the window where you can reserve a spot. We're just about out of time here, Neale. Boy, these hours go fast. And a week from today, Neale is back to describe this whole initiative in a lot more detail with us. Do you have any closing thoughts or invitations for people, Neale?
I sure don't. We have 20 seconds left. So if we're going to be on time, I would just say thank you all for being here, and we'll see you next Wednesday.
Okay, looking forward. Thank you, viewers, for being here, and thanks for all of your interaction. Again, this whole thing, it's all about you. You might have thought tuning in, oh, this is about Neale and Steve. No, it's not. We're actually just just sharing invitations. It's actually all about you. Okay, thanks everybody. Love and peace and blessings, and we look forward to being back with you a week from today. And have a marvelous, if you're in the United States, have a marvelous July 4th weekend, everybody. Enjoy. Thanks for being with us.